Video 105, an ancient file of a set of Gaias destroying the civilization in that planetary system that Gaias were in charge of. As explained by the ancient spirit tralaka here, speaking here in spirit. The Gaias do communicate. Understand this, please. To the different civilizations, though sufficient in manners and methods, most of the time they will whisper into the solar winds that then passes to and through the planets and moons in a manner that at least some of those civilizations there will be able to understand what the Gaias are trying to tell them. Like, hey, it's time to look for other star systems to move to and get the technology you need to do this to be able to reseed your civilization elsewhere where it will be in a much more healthy area for the prosperity of the civilization's future. But please understand, there has been a few there, in the very far ancient times and not so ancient times, that a system of planets and moons of a set of Gaias took different civilizations of species in their system that she had shined for in this particular situation many hundreds of thousands of years for. Later they will shine to other civilizations that'll come into their area normally, because civilizations come, civilization go for the Gaias. The Gaias live so immensely long that it's virtually impossible to be able to explain, to be understood. But no, they have a life too. But although here understand that in the Gaias, they provide many of the nutrients for the civilizations to be able to live there, to be able to handle the situations. But in remote certain cases, though, then the species that civilization had turned from being this happiness and understanding with the Gaia and working through the different problems. Instead, here we have a civilization that had turned into instruments of a bloodthirsting evil. Now, if you've been listening to the videos, Tralaka has talked about this bloodthirsting evil in other videos. Important to understand, this is not just a one-planet situation. This has happened in different areas before, that has spread in this situation into that entire planetary system of planets and moons, in which this particular case was 14 planets and 31 moons. Wow! Although 6 of those moons were only approximately 307 kilometers across, roughly. Enough to make a nice spot for us, a space-going truck stop, but not much to live on because it's so small. But those moons were very thick in veins of sulfur, and this other one, which is called toxibuminium, the second one was then refined very carefully, and they made a very powerful fuel with this, which they would extract to be able to operate the power plants on the moons and planets and their vehicles. However, this was just the beginning of a very bad set of inventions that those species that later turned into that bloodthirsting species in that system. The sulfur was refined, very intricately refined, to make a variable of extremely powerful, highly toxic drugs that cause things like permanent insanity in very short order in some situations, first time, that caused, in worse situation, a timeline of this insanity of these beings, of their entire cultures that were so addicted to it This was used by the different fractions of species there to put in other species' furniture. Interesting point here, because there's feuding between the different parts of that civilization. One part of it said, hey, why don't we take and put this highly toxic drug in the furniture and we'll sell it to the other ones that we can't stand, and it'll get in their skin and blood as they're wearing the materials or sitting on the furniture or drinking from whatever vessel or cup that they use. But this also created, it would inhibit the adults from being able to make sound decisions, in which turn would greatly cripple the ability of the adults to be able to govern anything, much less their country and cities and planets and moons. But also here important, it greatly inhibited the war military personnel from being able to think clearly, to be able to do their job without sacrificing a whole bunch of people, or rather beings that they've been working with, because of this drug that they would go crazy on. But on all sides. But to get them, they also use this on the prisoners to tell all the secrets, and they'll give them that little extra bit, and they would just start yap on the secrets of their own military. But unfortunately here, and this is very strange, as some actually grew intolerant of this highly toxic drug, but by this time it had already changed the DNA in them enough to create later generations of what they considered perfect expendable soldiers. Whoa, what a clash of words there. For those species military who would remain sane, so to speak, not really sane, but partially sane, until their early mid-adulthood. Although by then they had so many years of military training, but when this would start going crazy in their DNA, they would be out in the battlefields or in the space wars, and then there'd be this noticeable click sound in their heads. But here Tralaka pauses in sharing this information with me, and he says a few notes here. Now that he'll try to get back later on explaining this better if some information can be found on this. For he had long talks with other beings about this particular history on his file to ask what that click sound really was, and was it that noticeable? For Tralaka himself here is wondering, of whom was it that it was noticeable for? Was it noticeable for, like, the next door neighbor? Uh-oh, wow, hey, I just heard the clicking sound of my next door neighbor. Well, he'll be dead in a few hours. Hey, I wonder if I can have his bolt since he'll be dead. But was it noticeable by those who heard it in their heads very clearly shortly after going full-bore insane and very violent death? Or was it noticed by a not seen visiting spirit being or spirit beings, plural here, who had been there observing, and they were not being seen or recognized by the species on that planet? Now, Tralaka here himself is wondering, though, who this would have been, because if this would have been an official secret visit from a other star system council spirit being or a higher dimensional council spirit beings, secret visits, why is there no listings anywhere to be found of debates on or what methods, or whether to get involved or not get involved, to save or not save their next door neighboring systems of planets and moon species before they would end up disappearing themselves from their own history of ever being there. Now, this is very, very intricate questions here that need answering. To whom was that clicking sound in that particular species, in that system, being heard by? If this was being done, investigated on a formal manner, there would be a trail of information in a file someplace, somewhere, about this official visit and what happened in the debates. But there is no files that have ever been found on that part. That, these beings that were shortly after that clicking sound, and they would either go so insane, so violently right away, running through the battlefields, killing everybody, friend and fellow soldiers. Doesn't make a difference, and then rolling around in his blood like a untamed beast of the wild. Or the pilots in their spaceship, their space fighter ships rather, and they would go put them into as fast as they can get them, pedal to the metal, as they can get it going within that short distance between the ships, to crash in there to try to kill everybody. And so in those last few nanoseconds of explosions, those crazed beings was enjoying this intense, bloodthirsty thrill of the kill before they get sniffed out because of their own insanity. But it's in a case like this here that the system of planets and moons of that sun's system, the Gaia's released, the containment of what held that sun together. At the few mute moments later, the other planets and moons, the Gaias who run them, of this system, they released also their containment that hold the planets in form and also the moons in form. And then the Gaia departed outwards, not upwards, but outwards rather, to the outlying borders of that star system, right on the borderline there, while they watched with such deep concern as this ribbons of energy, massive energy, as the sun let loose and the planets and that, these giant ribbons of energy, total destruction of everything in that system, absolute. And they were concerned that not one single ship would get free of this devastation, this complete system devastation of the planets, moons, and sun. Then, as the planets, moon, and sun was fully pulled apart, all those Gaias left from there and searched in the surrounding darkness of space outside of what was once their system to make sure once again that not one single being of the physical aspect being that of that diseased, pure bloodthirsting, and not one single one survived or was able to leave. Now, during those final times of the last parts of the rolling ribbons of energies of death that spread to its furthest planets and moons, engulfing that full flowing ribbons of death, they are sure that not one diseased being from that species would ever be able to cross into another star system to escape, to then later pollute and disease other systems that were much earlier in situations of planning and beginning. Because understand that the whole system of planets and moons at that spot were destroyed to keep other systems healthy, with many variables of spirit beings with their outer expression bodies, to even the Gaia here, which it just follows telling that the Gaia were so shaken from that system on what they had done in order to preserve a healthy life for the surrounding planetary systems. in other parts of in the local area there of the living multidimensional multi-universe. They then departed to different locations with this deep sadness, deep sadness, before watching the old and very well trusted Gaia that was of that one-time system son do his final duty. The final last things he had to do before he could leave and go into the next cycle of life as a Gaia. But this is here showing how dedicated and how thoroughly committed a Gaia can be. That in the very last efforts, when everything else has failed and there's no possible for any fixing or getting anyone to aid in the fixing, that decisions that are being made in order to keep so many other civilizations of variables of different species healthy and having a healthy future, minus the bloodthirsty. But the Gaia in this situation was above that old Gaia here was above the 14th. Well, actually, that particular Gaia, as tralaka was understanding as he read this, was of a 17th dimensional Gaia, a very ancient Gaia. Could you imagine a Gaia, 17th dimensional, what his office wall would look like? It's, this civilization was from this period, then there was this civilization, and then we had this multi-civilization, and then we have all these things on the walls. Incredible, with the experience that is just so brain numbing to try to explain here, though yet with understanding. It was better to go back for that old Gaia into a new cycle of life than to let those bloodthirsty species contaminate many other civilized worlds. This is but one of the so many incredibly long humming songs of the Gaias that live within the living multi-dimensional multi-universe, that are stout and powerful humming Gaias. These songs talk about the histories. It talks about the good times. It talks about their deep love for their jobs and their commitments. And it's incredible. But this here is the ancient spirit tralaka. As always, my friends, expand the mind to understand you are so much more than a mere three-dimensional human in a one-shot plan. This is not the situation. You have so many lives before this one, and you'll have so many lives after this one, and so many other different situations, so many different variables of bodies and dimensions and variables within dimensions to be able to explore, to be able to witness, to be able to enjoy, or otherwise to be able to educate others. This here is the ancient spirit tralaka. Good night.